Welcome back to Dead to the Co. This is Chris,
And this is Ian.
and we're rounding out night two at Nassau Coliseum in 2019. Ian, I didn't catch it during our last episode, but we recorded on May 15th, and the Go to Nassau Grateful Dead album, May 15th and 16th, 1980, came out 45 years earlier to the date of that recording. Pretty neat.
Yeah, it's just like we planned it.
Yeah, just like we planned it. And I wish we did notice that because I think, as I mentioned, I inserted a little clip into the last episode, but they played a lot of like duplicate songs. So they were obviously calling back to that night in the set list from last show.
They actually planned it.
Huh?
They actually planned it, at least a little bit.
Oh yeah,
At
they
least,
actually
at
planned
least
it.
noticed that was the case.
Yes. But tonight's show is going to be a lot of fun because I looked up a fun fact for each song on the set list. I wanted to bring a little more to this one. So I have some fun facts to share. It might be one of our longer episodes. But how's that sound to you, Ian?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. This was show number 141 in Dead and Company history. This was night two again at Nassau Coliseum. A few notes before we get into it. They actually dedicated a banner in the rafters to Dead and Company and the Grateful Dead for 44 shows combined at the venue. So we mentioned it was a historic venue last episode. I didn't realize they played there. Grateful Dead played there 42 times.
Okay. So yeah, so this is these nights combined were like the first time that Dad and Company had played there.
Yes, yes, that is correct. Um, and then one thing I want to do is that we rank the show poster at the end of the episode. Not rank, but rate it. Take a look at the
Okay.
poster. I thought that could be a new fun element we start in these episodes.
Yeah, let's
All
do it.
right, sweet. So a lot on the docket. So first and foremost, we start with Feel Like a Stranger. And Ian, I saw Bill Walton in the crowd during this song.
Yeah, he was probably there the entire fall run. Must have been.
Probably. Yeah, but there was a lot of shots of him during this song and throughout the show as well. This was a pretty good Feel Like a Stranger, I thought. My fun fact about it is that Barlow wrote Feel Like a, this is actually the least fun of most of them because it's just a fact. It's actually not that fun. But it was written in January 1980 in Mill Valley, California, debuted March 31st, 1980, and it was frequently used as an opener, as we know. The song was last performed by the Dead on July 5th, 1995, in Maryland Heights, Missouri. So that again was just a fact, but there's some information about Feel Like a Stranger.
Yeah, my thoughts on this song as an opener, it's like kind of the opposite of last night, the opposite of Jackstraw, where it's definitely more fast paced as an opener. You still have it kind of opening up at the end, um, but they definitely get more right into it compared to Jackstraw, where they kind of sit in the opening before they get into the actual song.
Yeah, that's a great point. This one's kind of more immediate than Jack Straw's, where you have the build up. So that is a good point with the opening. It kind of reminds me of a Shakedown opening. Obviously, they're similar songs; they sound very similar, but they go hand in hand to me. Um, Also, I noticed during this song a few things about the style of the band members. Bob was rocking a slicked back look. It looked very like old school Western. Whereas John was wearing like a bonnet and Jeff was wearing a UFO Fest shirt. So if that doesn't capture the dynamic of the band, I don't know what else does.
Yeah, it does feel very like earlier Dead and Company
It,
that they
yeah.
have kind of like not like different vibes, but like not as synced up as they are now, I think.
No, that's such a good point. I feel like that's when we were getting some wackier John outfits too, like the Johnny Checkers look and some other ones that really were questionable decisions. We go into New Speedway Boogie. Um, I always like this song, but it's a little slower.
Yeah, I is this the first time we've had it on the pod? It sounded like newer
I think
than
so.
I think this might be the first one. I think this is one. that we got at Bristol a lot when we went. So this
Right.
always feels like a new song. I thought it was a pretty groovy for the second song. I thought I read there's a pretty nasty version for just the second song in the set. I
Okay.
think they were. I mean, this is the second night of a show, so I think they're coming off of the day before, and we're feeling pretty good already.
Yeah, that's cool. Um, Fun fact, this one also is not fun because this one's actually more sobering. This was written in response to the tragedy at the, is it Altamont Speedway Free Festival in 1969. Unfortunately, there was a few deaths. There was a lot of violence at this festival. It was billed to be like the Woodstock of the West. It was going to be the next big thing. Grateful Dead were key organizers of this event. People that performed there were Santana, Jefferson Airplane, the Flying Burrito Brothers, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, the Rolling Stones, and the Dead pulled their performance because it was getting too violent. So I didn't know that about that song, and I thought that would be interesting to share.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Yeah, that definitely feels like a late 60s, early 70s thing
Yeah,
happened,
yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
and that group of musicians being together as well.
Yeah, really interesting group of musicians. I mean, that's a powerful lineup. Um, we go from New Speedway Boogie into Direwolf, and Direwolf is one of my favorite Grateful Dead songs as in terms of like the studio recordings. Um, I really like the version off Working Men's Dead, and it builds off last episode where they had a lot of Working Men's Dead songs, if I remember correctly. So this flowed pretty well with the set. In context to the night before as well, and I thought it was a well done version.
Yeah, I felt it was similar to New Speedway Boogie, how they approached it. This is another one where this feels like a very comfortable pairing just because this is another song that we get at Bristol a lot as a third set song.
Mm.
Um, this felt like a little distinct to me than the way they normally do Direwolf. It felt like a little slower, and the pacing was more kind of like regimented. Um, so I thought that was interesting and kind of like a fun departure from how they normally do the song. Um, but yeah, good set so far.
Yeah, my fun fact is that direwolves are back. I don't know if you saw the news.
I need
I
to.
think you sent me the news actually when it happened. So they successfully cloned, I guess, regular wolves into direwolves somehow. So pretty sweet. We go into When I Paint My Masterpiece. I thought this sounded nice. I know we had this song once before, and if I recall correctly, you weren't that huge on Bob's performance on that one. Is that right?
I. It's not that I'm not huge on it. This is one of my favorite songs of all time. I think it's really Bob Dylan at his best.
Mhm.
And I think it's just funny how like the way that Bob Dylan writes songs and the way it's like syncopated and it's like so distinctly to Bob Dylan's voice and the way he does things. I just don't think it's compatible at all with Bob Weir's approach to songs. So it's not that it's bad. It's funny just to try to have him kind of like translate the Bob Dylan rhythm into his own rhythm, and it kind of makes like an interesting pacing for the lyrics and the the music.
Well said. That sounds like a thesis that you should write. I really like it. My fun fact is that this is a mainstay from the Rough and Rowdy worldwide tour. Wow, try saying that 10 times fast. So Bob Dylan's ongoing tour across the world. This song was on the set list on more than 340 consecutive nights from 2021 to 2024. How insane is that?
Is that tour still going on?
I think so. I think it's like never ending. I know, yeah, Bob Dylan is still touring. I don't know if it is the Rough and Rowdy Ways World Tour, but I'm assuming it is.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it deserves it. I don't know if he's doing it necessarily because he thinks it's like the crown jewel of his catalog, but maybe it's an easier song for him to play. I don't even know. Does he still sing anymore? Is he just doing he's just doing like piano for a while, right?
Yeah,
Or
you can call it singing. He does something akin to singing. Yeah, he also I think plays some piano. And he has a lot of musicians on stage with him as well. But love Bob Dylan. But just a interesting fact there. And then we go into Sugaree, which I have claimed as John Mayer's best song with Dead and Company, which is a bit of a hot take because we know he has some other ones that are staples. And I stand by that even after this version, which was very well done.
yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say about this that hasn't already been said. Like this is probably the match made in heaven for John. Like this is I think a song that he's always felt very comfortable in since the beginning. So um, this is a song that he's just consistently done well from the beginning to the present day. So it
Yeah.
is interesting to see like going over these shows and getting Sugary and be like, yeah, like that's just him killing it every time. I know it's been said like on like social media, like everyone posts like after every single show that Sugary's played, like someone posts like, "Oh, this is like the best Sugary that he's done." And it's just like every single time, it's like the people that are there to witness it are like, "Oh yeah, like this is the best one," and we're
Yeah,
all like that.
absolutely. My fun fact about this song is that Elizabeth Cotton, a North Carolina folk singer, wrote and recorded a song called Shake Sugaree in 1966. The chorus goes, "Oh Lordy me, didn't I shake Sugaree?" So it is, I think it's confirmed that Hunter was referencing this song when he wrote this Sugaree. That was made for Jerry's first solo album in 1972.
Jerry was a huge fan of Elizabeth Cotton. I don't know
Mhm.
if they ever met, and I don't really know um, how much. I don't remember off the top of my head how much he played in the Grateful Dead, but her songs were like a staple of Jerry Garcia Band, the acoustic album. So. Um, Not coincidental that this is sort of like a take on that song.
So that's cool. I didn't know. I thought maybe this was a one-time reference to this singer. I didn't realize that she had this following for with Jerry Garcia. So that's really neat. I'll have to read more about Elizabeth Cotton. Um, so yeah, we go into Cassidy. Um, And I actually really enjoyed this version specifically. I thought it was really spacey when we got into like some of the soloing and like the jam portion of it. So I have Cassidy's really grown on me, and I actually really, really paid attention to this one.
Yeah, I think this was good. I think it's just very like night two vibes with this song and the next song coming up. Um, Sort of feels like this is, like night one was a lot of like the Brown Eyed Woman and St. Stephen, and then this feels like the counterpoint with Cassidy and Music Never Stopped, which is coming up next.
Yeah. Just real quick fact about Cassidy. It was written as like a double meaning for Cassidy Law, a daughter to the office manager, early archivist of the band, and as well as counterculture icon Neil Cassidy, who ran with Kerouac and all those people. So it kind of was written for two people, one who had just passed away and one who was just born, and like they share the same name, and it talks about the past and the future and all that.
I think that was on Long Strange Trip, right? Where I don't know if it's to the day, but that child was born like right around when Neil died, so it was thought to be sort of that kind of
Yeah,
cosmic.
we have another Neil Cassidy fact coming up a little bit later in the show, actually, I believe. So we'll get to that. The music never stopped. Um, really, really fun song. I like this as an opener, but I actually thought it fit well here as well, kind of bouncing right out of Cassidy. And this is a song that is symbolic of like the community in general and kind of the spirit of the Dead and Company, like keeping the music ongoing. So I think it has a little bit of a special meaning with Dead and Company because if you look at it from the perspective of like, wow, they're still up there doing it. The music never stopped. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean it's this is a great song. There's a whole bunch of versions that I like, covers as well. It feels almost a little too on the nose that it's about them. It feels like almost like too a little like self-congratulatory in some
Yeah.
way. At least I feel like this image that they are perceived as. Um, I do like the "Were They Ever Here at All" line. I think it is a fun song.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so this was written by Barlow and Weir, and it was written over the phone. And the first line just had came out. There's mosquitoes on the river, fish are rising up like birds. Barlow was living in Wyoming at the time on a ranch and was kind of describing what he was seeing with like the late summer. So I thought that was kind of neat to see that so literally translated right onto the page or onto the tape. Was it's just a cool story that they did it over the phone.
Yeah, I mean, when was it written? It was like early 70s,
Um,
probably. It was.
of course I don't have that part, but that's a quick Google search away if you want to throw that up as I transition us into the set break actually. So for set break, just gonna do a quick fit check. I got my Johnny Cash shirt on. No Johnny Cash cover tonight. No Big River, but always repping JC. It's not a Johnny Mayer shirt. Ian, what are you wearing tonight?
I got my Dead and Company, like
Oh,
canoe. I forget where we got this. This was, I think this might have been Hershey that we got it, like
that kind of
20.
gives Kiss the Girl Little Mermaid vibes. They're on the canoe or whatever. Alrighty. Did you look
Uh,
up music never
yeah,
stops?
so we're both, fake. It was on Blues for Allah, which was 1975.
Alrighty, there we have it. I
Oh,
actually
wow. It was on like Kingfish or something.
I actually should have known it was on Blues for Allah because we're starting off set two with a trio from Blues for Allah. So I was actually looking at the Blues for Allah album earlier today and reading about it. So should have known that one. But yeah, we start out with a Help Slip Franklin's Tower traditional um, trio there. And I find it really interesting, this set of songs, because Help on the Way and Slipknot are like pretty difficult songs to play, especially Slipknot. And then Franklin's Tower is one of the probably easier ones in their lexicon. So it's just kind of funny that you have to like battle through like the boss before you get to the end of the song. John called Slipknot the hardest thing that he had to learn, and many people regard Slipknot as his like most inventive and hardest song to cover.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny to see John admit that. Like, I know what you're talking about where he said that, and he like was like instantly like there was no doubt in his mind that this was the hardest thing, especially when it's like very early on in set two. At least you have like a little bit of warm up before, but like you don't get a lot of momentum going in. You kind of have to bust it out right away, which is probably contributes to the difficulty.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Uh,
Yeah. And like you said, where last show was a little bit more working man's dead, they draw more off the other another album this time.
yes, that's a good point. We go into Dark Star, that had some twists throughout, with a cover of A Love Supreme. Is that Coltrane?
Yeah.
Okay. And then they finish out Dark Star. So this was a longer jam. My fun fact is that George R. R. Martin's a huge Deadhead, and there's a character in A Song of Ice and Fire named Dark Star.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch like direwolves, obviously.
Mm.
Um, I used to know more. I can't come up with any more off the top of my head.
There's the Mountains of Moon as well.
Um,
But yeah, just a fun fact there. Any thoughts on Dark Star?
no, I mean this is like a pretty fun set so far. Kind of like classic. You have like one block and helps with Frank, and then a second block in Dark Star, and then you're pretty much done the first part of the second set. So not a lot of not going through a ton of songs. Um, Thought it was interesting that they have the Love Supreme um, part here that's very commonly kind of coming out of space. Um, and they'll do. We probably shouldn't do this show because we talk about it a lot, but they do My Favorite Things coming out of space. Um, the next show, which is
Yeah.
what the next weekend, I think, in Hampton. Um, so interesting that they put it before Drums in Space.
Yeah, the drums in space. I actually didn't listen to this set of drums in space because I was running low on time. I actually finished the show right before the podcast. I was kind of doing the notes as I did the show. So I didn't listen to the drums in space here. I fully admit it. Did you catch them?
Yeah, I mean, it felt a little different than night one. Night one was kind of started out pretty fast and settled into space. This one, I felt like a little bit more mellow, might not be the word, but a little bit more evenly paced across. Um, Obviously, a lot of long songs um, in the second set, so maybe just
Right.
trying to keep the stamina up going throughout the set.
Right. We go into one of the longer ones, and that's the other one. Well, I don't think this version was actually that long, but we go into the other one, and this is where we have our second reference to Neil Cassidy. So um, he is referenced in the song in the lyrics as Cowboy Neil. And this is a really interesting fact. While the song was written over a period of time, the current version of the song that we know now came to Weir in a flash on the same night. Oh no, the first time it came to Weir in a flash, he wrote it, and then the first time it was performed was the night that Neil Cassidy died, and they didn't know that when they were performing. Neil Cassidy died like after the show early that morning in the same night. So the first version, the first performance of this version of the other one that has Cowboy Neil referenced was performed on the night that he died, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of the things like this is like okay, you're kind of like leaning into the mythos a little bit, but
Right.
something happens that's like okay, there is a little bit of circumstance going on.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the other one here?
Yeah, so kind of eating my words a little bit. This is obviously a reference to the night before where they had the other one in the same spot. This is more of a don't know where to put it as like not necessarily a part two, a little bit of a reprise, but mainly just like a quick reference to bridge the shows together.
Mhm.
Coming out Jumps in Space. So I thought this was really cool. One of the highlights of the show for me, I think.
Cool. I like that. Yeah. And then we go into Wharf Rat, which you dropped a fun fact on me on one of our previous episodes that a wharf rat is a downtrodden sailor who spends all his money drinking at the wharf when the ship's docked. Do I have that correctly?
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty cool. So I had to bring back that fact for those who may have missed it. Um, this is this song is often played in this spot in the set, kind of like the last Bob song before you go into the set closer. Um, and it's actually really grown on me a lot. And I actually really like it now. Whereas at first I didn't fully understand it, I think. But now I actually am really enjoying this song. Billy Strings did a good cover of this. I know he's done it throughout his career probably, but the one that I'm aware of, I think was at one of the Grateful Dead like tributes earlier this year. So um, it's just a song that has slowly grown on me and seeing these different versions of it throughout the years.
Yeah, I think it's really up there in terms of like the masterpieces of songwriting it by Robert Hunter. It feels a lot like some news about what's to come in terms of these songs. See a lot of it in like Mission in the Rain and like kind of later Jerry Garcia band and like later Robert Hunter writing. This is several years before. Um, yeah,
Hmm.
I mean this is a really great song and I think a really iconic song for the Grateful Dead discography.
Yeah. I noticed that John Mayer was playing what's the brand? Let me pull it up. I wrote it down. Um Travis Bean guitar, which I'm not super familiar with, but this was one. Jerry's Travis Bean was his third most played guitar, used from 1976 to 1978 most frequently. Um, and he played it at the Cornell 77 concert. So I don't think John Mayer was playing a replica of that or anything like that, but neat that he was playing that same brand.
Yeah, I mean there's definitely still around. It sounds like it wasn't Jerry's Travis Bean. I know
I
that's
don't
still bouncing around.
I don't think so. That's not what I read, but it could have been, but I don't think it was.
Yeah, like a super super cool kind of. I mean, when you're thinking of sometimes like you know the guitarist goes to another guitar, it's like well that's kind of the same thing. The Travis Beans are pretty distinct. I think it's like a fun. It's like kind of clear why it was like a often number two for Jerry.
Okay, yeah. Um, I know nothing about guitars, so I play some guitar, but I don't know anything about them.
So it's like a all aluminum. It's not wooden, at least in
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty neat. We going to turn on your love light? Um,
I aluminum neck, not like all like literally.
okay. All right, that's a helpful clarification because I was thinking just a hunk of metal. We going to turn on your love light to close out the set. This song always plays well at this spot. This was originally a Bobby Blue Bland song in 1961. It became a centerpiece of the band with Pigpen, who has versions of Love Light stretching over 20 minutes, which is hilarious. I thought that this was a fun way to end the set and a good way to pick it right back up after a little bit of a slow spell, with kind of from Dark Star through Wharf Rat. It's a little bit slower, so this was good to pick it up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm. I guess it makes more sense that you didn't pick this up, but I'm a little embarrassed that I didn't pick it up until this point in the show, where one of my favorite uh, Grateful Dead shows of all time that I listen to constantly is Wake Up to Find Out, which was at this venue, Nassau Coliseum, in 1990. This is the show with Branford Marsalis in the second set. Um, but in this show, they also played When I Played My Masterpiece in the first set and
Hmm.
ended second set with Turn On Your Love Light, and the same encore knocking on Heaven's Door. So I think the show is kind of a nod to several of the shows that they played previously. But I didn't pick it up until we got to the end of the set.
Nice. Yeah, I had no idea. But that's really cool. So it sounds like night one was kind of a reference to that other time, in New York, and then this one was a reference to that show that you were just mentioning. So that's really cool. As you said, we go into knocking on heaven's door, and I'm fresh off crying off this song before this podcast. This always hits home. It's nice because you have Bob singing it and you can kind of hear the mortality in his voice. And then you have John picking up another verse. And it's always cool when they share a song together. Um, so this was a good way to end the show and another Bob Dylan cover on the night. So they were definitely feeling themselves some Dylan, because we get Masterpiece and Heaven's Door.
Yeah, like this is one of incredible song by Bob Dylan. I mean, it is really like shows his force as a songwriter, and it makes complete sense why the Grateful Dead and I expect Dead and Company, who also have a ton of really good encores, pick this up as one that is sort of like a more frequent encore.
Hmm.
Um, kind of like a bunch of the other songs. Really like to see John and Bob share the lyrics on this.
Hmm.
Um, and it's been a good encore for decades now.
Absolutely. Did you know, Ian, that Bob Dylan, we know that he toured with the Dead on the Dylan and the Dead tour, but did you know that he wanted to become an official member of the Grateful Dead? And the band, this is a true story, as far as I'm aware, and the band would have to be unanimous in their decision to allow him to enter. And according to reports, at least one band member voted no. Do you have a lean on who that band member may have been who voted no?
No, I feel like it could be like equally any of them. What this tour was it in the 80s that they did one
Yeah,
in?
yes. It's one of like the core band members that
Yeah. Um, I'll just go with Phil. I don't think
yeah.
it was Phil.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
At least that's what's reported. Not sure if it's a true story, but I think it is.
Which I think we should say is the right decision in this.
Yes. No, it's absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not like we're like, oh, Phil, like you're ruining it. No, that is like a good thing
No,
that
he's like the sound. I think he brings like a lot of sound logic to the band. So I actually would have voted the same way as him. As much as I love Dylan and the Dead, I just don't know if it would have worked out long term. So that is it for the show. Ian, let's take a look at the poster here. I'll share my screen real quickly. All right, I'm pulling it up on my phone because my computer is being difficult. If you're listening along, pull up the show poster, and
it's the same poster for both nights.
yes, it's the
It,
same poster both nights.
it's interesting because for the next weekend they had split night, and I don't think there was a poster for each night for this.
Yeah, no, for some reason it's strange to me too, but they did do the poster on just one combined night. This is like kind of a retro one. It's kind of simple. What stood out to me is it doesn't say Dead and Company anywhere on it, nor does it have, actually,
Hold on.
wait a minute.
You're not looking at the right.
I'm looking at the zoomed in version.
You have to do just Google it.
All right, yeah. Anyways, this didn't turn out as smooth as I thought, but this show poster I'd give like, I don't know, a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, it's not my favorite. Here. Um, I like that it says I like the Denon Company logo on it. Not text, I guess, but like it could be a logo. Um, and I kind of like the speech bubble. I think it's fun, but not necessarily my vibe for what I am hoping for at that poster when I'm going.
Alrighty. Well, there you heard it. That's the official take on our poster for this show. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll catch you next time on Dead to the Co. We're going to do a little bit of a fun episode next time, not review a show. We're going to do a different topic. So we'll see you next time.